welcome to another webinar stroke podcast from agilecoach.com.au. We've got the same guys here as last week, Ollie and Sandika. How are you going, guys?
Going well. How are you, Sandika? How are you, Alex?
I'm good. Thanks, Alex. Good to see you, Ollie.
Well,
yes.
The big question is, how is your lawn, Sandika? Have you mowed it?
It's good. It's under 2 inches, so
nice.
I'm happy with it.
With the putter then, eh? We've just had some rain here for the first time in weeks and weeks and weeks. I've been having to water mine, but yeah. So the other news, other than the rain, is we've just had the debate with Donald Trump, and as we are all immigrants, I have to ask you: do you eat cats and dogs? Something you do on a regular basis? Is it? Well, we're not in America, but absolutely bonkers. All right.
Yeah.
So what amazes me is that the fact that people don't check on facts and the importance of data and factual data to make a point. Right nowadays, you can make an argument with 100%. Absolute rubbish. Yeah.
So
I think that's the point, though, Sandika. It was on TV. He saw it on TV. He just repeats it.
I know, and it was from TV, strangely enough, as well. So it's actually in the contract. So they tried to change the rules for the second debate, but then she decided not to. The fact checker wasn't allowed to be live while they were on. I think that was for this one. I've certainly hearing from the podcast beforehand, that was the case. So what did you do? If you weren't feasting on pets, what did you do this weekend? Ollie, what were you up to?
I can't even remember. My boy's football educator. So I've got a 2.5-year-old, Alex, and he goes to an institution called Little Kickers.
Nice.
And trying to get him on the beautiful game.
Nice.
And his attention span is almost as bad as mine. It's finite. So there's 45 minutes, and we struggle to get through. But there are stamps, like they come around with stamps, and so when the attention starts flagging towards the end, you got to stay if you want your stamps, and
some
digs deep.
That's some tricks.
Yeah.
What about you, Sandika?
I have a holiday coming up, so getting ready for that.
Oh yeah.
I'll be off 3 weeks.
Yeah. For you. Yeah.
Very nice.
The thing about the attention span of kids, I actually did have someone introduced to me today that there are going to be some 2-hour meetings coming up, and my declaration was, if it's longer than a sports game, it's too long. So 2 hours is too long, because you could about keep me for a
not for
game.
NFL, mate.
No,
not for NFL. That's like 3.5, 4 hours.
Yeah, but if they came around with some stamps or some chocolates, that might keep me entertained. So maybe that's the trick. We're all just big kids, really. This week we have picked a topic, and it's a topic that comes up every 3 months. And we're all at different gigs, but we're all do it every 3 months, and it's quarterly planning. It's quarterly planning or PI planning, and we want to talk about, what does it do for us, what doesn't it do for us, and what should it do, and maybe doesn't deliver, and why, and what are our experiences. So, I mean, I've been quarterly planning, started with SAFE since, maybe about 5 years ago, and I was thinking about what didn't we do before, and what did it bring, and wanted to explore. I'll explore it with you first, Ollie. When quarterly planning first came in, did it solve a problem for you, or was it something that was just a process that came in? Do you remember that far back?
Yeah, I remember that far back. Weren't we working at the same place, Alex? I think
we were at different teams. Different teams, but yeah, it was introduced
different
about
teams.
the same time.
So, yeah. So look, that was my first quarterly planning. Experience as well. And for my team, we were in an area of work that didn't have any interactions with the other teams. We were running independent. It didn't benefit us. It didn't necessarily benefit the businesses that we were building for. When I say businesses here, we were working under this one corporate umbrella, but we were kind of servicing a couple of the smaller companies within it. And so the outcome for them was a plan, but we could have given them that plan anyway, right? So, but I understood we were working for this digital part of the business, and there was about 12 teams in there. We were just one of them, so it offered a lot of benefit for the bigger part of digital to be able to get everything on on these roadmaps and these plans and communicate with stakeholders and have dependencies mapped. 100%, I get that, but because we were operating off on a little silo, didn't really do much for us. But you sometimes have to go because you're expected to.
Did you already have a plan that was in 3 months in advance? Yeah, and you had your
pretty much.
Fixed, right?
I mean, it wasn't necessarily 3 months, but it was a roadmap that went probably 6 months. It was pretty shady towards the end, pretty grey, but we had those artifacts already. So we were kind of going through the motions of being there.
To be fair, and I'll come to you in a second, Sandy, because we're talking about the same experience. And I was in a team, almost a sister team. So you were looking after, like you said, one group. I had closer siblings. So if we were cousins, there was 2 or 3 teams looking after the same platform. It didn't actually benefit us an awful amount either, but we felt the same way in our group. We were there to support the others because we were quite mature by that point. But it did mean that we had the senior leadership supporting our plan a bit better because they had better visibility because they were actually asking for it rather than us just doing it and keeping it to ourselves. I think that was the benefit of that particular experience when we moved from one to the other. What about you, Sandika? Well, do you remember your first time at quarterly planning, modern quarterly planning? I mean, we all probably did planning. I remember in my 20s doing planning on a regular basis, but it was kind of just get together and talk and agree on everything prior to SAFE.
First time I heard of quarterly planning was back in 2013-14, working in Colombo for a US company, and they've had the quarterly planning in US. And we are like augmented team, so we get direction from US, and the product owners are there. We have a delegate product owner. So that's my first introduction. I was like, what is going on? What is SAFE? Why is this happening? And it didn't make much of a sense. Nothing changed. Yes, they did some planning. Probably it made sense to them back in Boston. That was the first introduction. Actually didn't have to do anything. We were just told these are priorities, and we just moved on.
So were you involved in the planning, or was it just similar? Someone was planning.
Nothing.
What was the first time you were involved in planning?
That was back when I migrated to Australia. So large telco. That's when we started. That's when I've started actually practically getting involved. It took some time to get used to what is it all about. Like if you didn't know, if you didn't have someone briefing you as to what it is, it takes time getting used to, and everybody has a different view of what is expected, and just the preparation leads you to a successful planning event or not. And especially with augmented teams or distributed teams, it's just not easy. So we had teams
From a team member point of view, I suppose it's a massive leap, right? Because all of a sudden you're involved in planning bigger stuff. So we've all been involved in sprint planning. And by the time I was doing quarterly planning, I was a Scrum Master delivery lead as well. But if you could take yourself out of that position and put yourself in the developer or the tester's experience, how do you think they found that experience that first time, Sandika, the first time you put them in and had to guide them through it? Did you find that?
They found it bollocks, actually.
I think that's fair. That's definitely what I got as well. Yeah.
2 days wasted, or how many number of hours. They love the fact that there was free food and coffee and all of that. That's good. And there was a lot of post-its here and there. And look, I kept asking the question from everyone that I've interacted since I've started getting practically involved. What the universal message is, or the common denominator for people is that, I met someone that I haven't met before, so I made a connection, or I had I had this discussion in person, or I had this discussion in detail. I understood, it's not necessarily from within your team, but people that you work with in a program of work. That is the most beneficial outcome for them, not the big plan.
Yeah, you're right.
Or the boards. Yeah. So that.
So who's the main beneficiary of PI planning? Is it the teams or is it the business that get their plans?
It's good.
Yeah.
That's a good point, actually. I think my experience, I think it addresses the needs of the hierarchy or the senior stakeholders or senior management. They will see some assurance in what you plan, especially at the end if you're doing a vote of confidence. I think it's more for them as well to seek some assurance. Okay, we know what we are doing for the next 3 months. Off we go.
Yeah.
And they get a chance to know everybody as well. I mean, now we're leaders in the game. I have to go to quite a lot of effort to get to know my team, especially remotely. More so, it was difficult when you became a leader and you weren't part of the team. You had to make more effort to get to know the team. But remotely is even more difficult. PI planning is now an opportunity. If nothing else, you get to meet the team, and you get to meet them maybe outside of work. Which, I mean, we all work. Oddly enough, I think, Ollie, you might be the only person who actually works in the same city where your office is, or your main office is. Sandika and I both work in cities where the main office is, or our main teams are probably in the other big city.
You guys work in satellite offices.
Yeah, effectively. I mean,
on the HQ.
Yeah. So my main office is down in Melbourne. All my guys are down in Melbourne, or overseas because we work offshore. And Sandika, I know you're in Melbourne. Your main office is up here, so up in Sydney. So I think that's the thing that I often overlook. I often see PI planning as being a process to create a plan, cohesive plan and collaborative. And I often forget about that part, but now it's even more important than ever. And it's probably the only thing I'm going down next week for a PI planning. It's actually 95% of the reason I'm going. I'm not really going to do much else other than just
to get FaceTime with the people that you work with.
Just to get to know people. I'm going to join a new team again next week. It's just to get to know them.
Yeah.
So Ollie, back. So I will mention a name now, and I'm going to definitely mention him on LinkedIn. When I did it for the first time, there was a guy. I might have mentioned it before on our webinars. A little Liverpudlian called DJ who was on my team, and the first time I could get an estimate out of him, I think he described it as bollocks as well. So he then went into
Mr. Jones.
He then went into Ollie's team. So I wonder if he was in your team and if he changed his approach, his opinion, because I doubt very much he did. Did your team members think it was nuts doing it?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think so. We had the whole first time training wheels thing on, right? And it was a bit awkward. We'd been on some training and got ourselves certified prior to the first session, the first PI planning event. And there's a lot of stuff in that scaled agile framework. And so we were kind of apprehensive. I think the main complaint of, if I can stretch my memory back, the main complaint of the devs, including DJ, was that we could have just done this in the office in a couple of hours, right? That's not the point, though, right? It's more. It is somewhat performative, and it serves multiple purposes. So, if you're just looking at from an estimation background, you could say it's a bit of a waste of time, because you could do that exercise in isolation and you could do it quickly and you could tee up dependencies, on your own back. But if you're working on multiple independent projects within that 3 months, and you've got stakeholders coming in to add some color to your requirements, it becomes pretty important. And if you've got dependencies on other teams, it becomes pretty important. There's various kind of benefits to it, but going back to what I mentioned before, I think one of the primary purposes of it is to align the business units that you do in the work for about the sequence of work over the next 3 months. So you as delivery professionals are getting something from it. The business stakeholders are getting something from it. They're getting these 3 month plans. They know the sequence. They can roughly take that to the bank and they can understand what's coming their way. Leadership can go, right, we're aligned with the business. We're working towards strategic objectives, X, Y, Z. That's great. Risk and governance are probably there. They've tick. They've been around and they've done the right checks and made sure that people are doing their delivery risks and delivered risks and all that fun stuff. And so all these different parties are getting together and aligning, if it all goes well, about the next 3 months. And then you can just execute and run. So yes, it's a bit of a pain. And yes, sometimes it feels like a bit of a waste of time. But if you kind of think beyond your own particular unit and think of the wider program, it's pretty valuable exercise.
So moving forward to the second half of the chat, we wanted to go down the route of, so the reason why I started by saying, do you remember what you did before and then what we do now? Because we all now go through quarterly planning. Well, before we kind of just said, well, we'll get the plan and we'll interrupt the team to find out the estimates and look at a product that we're just in the middle of a sprint going, I need these estimates because I'm doing this plan for, and that was disruptive. So we'll pick on DJ again. DJ would moan a lot about that, right? And then we brought in this new way of working that said, actually, we're not going to do that anymore. We're going to put a queue together and these product guys can wait in that queue until quarterly planning, and then we'll do it once for 2 days. And then for 58 days, we're going to leave you. We're not going to interrupt you. That was the idea, 58 working days. So that can easily be sold to a developer. Is that what happens now in your experience? So Sandika, I've also worked with Sandika, of course, so I know his environment. It's very difficult to keep not just the product guys, but the project guys in particular, the finance guys, and all these guys to say, you've got to wait in the queue until the next quarter. Or do we end up just doing both ways?
I think, I personally, I struggle to understand the motives behind, in certain institutes or organizations, the motives behind a quarterly planning or a PI planning. Because SAFe, if you're taking it from SAFe, it's SAFe, as Oli was saying, it's quite prescriptive. There are certain prerequisites. There are certain things that you need to have, much like Scrum. You need to have certain things in order to make your planning, yield the outcome that you want. And if you look at the bookish version, the 2 days is packed with an agenda, right? And each of those items are there for a reason, as per the framework. Now, if you choose to pick that up and then customize it, then you need to know the reasons why you are keeping a certain thing and letting go a certain thing, and so on and so forth. So if you don't do that and don't prepare yourself for that, then you are basically setting up yourself for failure. That's what I've seen in most of the quarterly plannings with most of the large organizations that I've worked with. There's no sort of alignment to what is your flavor of program increment planning, whether you call it big group planning, quarterly planning, or OPI planning, the readiness criteria, and everything else that makes the planning proper, including, making sure that the right people are there and the time is dedicated, and you don't focus on anything else other than planning and things like that. So I always struggle with that, and my view and my contribution to quarterly planning as we start is, okay, where's our maturity at? We did these sort of things. This is the first time we are doing it, or the second time we are doing it. What were the learnings from the previous one? And then and go on. Otherwise, you'll just rinse and repeat, but not much of a progress. I don't know whether I answered the question, but that's...
No, you did. And you made me think about one of the things which I would... Now I'm trying to pick apart, and I'm hoping you guys are going to help me, because I don't want to make it sound like we've never got it right in all the different organisations I've been doing it. But there are a lot of things that you go, actually, that's not really working from an agile principles point of view. And one of them is, once it scales and becomes big and quarterly, you get a lot of management and a lot of alignment, so you can't improve. And I found that to be something that's quite frustrating. There are lots of things from the last PI that didn't work, but because it's such a big organisation, a big session, you can't almost change it because it's too big. So you don't get the improvement at the pace you would with 2-week scrums. 2-week sprints, you review, you get it better, you review, you get it better. Ollie, how about you, Ollie? I mean, what would be the thing that you'd say, yeah, it's not really worked in any way you've been from a PI planning point of view?
What do you mean now? Sorry,
so
clarify your question.
So has it made things better, first of all, from before? Because you said in the very first gig, didn't actually make anything better. You just joined the. Now since then, you've been doing PI planning a lot of different teams. So I know that team wasn't.
Okay, no, I get where you're going.
But has it made things better as a consequence of now continuing to do it? Would you rather go back to 2019 and go, actually, I'll go back to pre-PI?
Yeah. Look, I think it's in the business, in the company I'm in now, it's suitable. And the reason why it's suitable is because I am not working in a single product environment now where I could just do planning and I could just I've got one set of stakeholders and I'm running independent and I can just get on with things. Now I work in a much more complex and ambiguous environment where having a level of certainty about what you're working on and timelines is very welcome, because it shields the team from noise, allows them to get on with the work. Yes, it doesn't conform or comport to proper agile standards, and that's always the thing with scaled agile, right? It's way prescriptive, and it's not, it calls itself scaled agile, but it's not really, it's not very agile. But anyway, that aside, it benefits the environment I work in because of the nature of the work and the number of products I do. The big failure I see, or there's big headroom that needs to be addressed when you bring in scaled agile, is the prioritization mechanism. And so agile's got this, scaled agile's got this prescription of using WSJF, right? Weighted shortest job first.
Absolute nonsense.
Right.
I've never ever understood why people would buy into that.
Yeah. And it's like the formula is so abstract for business stakeholders. They just can't get their head. They're like, what?
I've been doing it for years. I don't get it.
Each different kind of set of stakeholders will be bringing work that has different types of benefits. So WSJF is this purist if you're on the scaled agile kind of train, very much way of doing things that it doesn't make any sense to business stakeholders. So get it, but that aside, getting the funnel process humming and transparent, and so coming out of this funnel is prioritized work that can then feed the team for the next 3 months is essential. And that's the one big thing that I've seen it again and again be a very elusive constructive, or rather construct, a very elusive artifact to get right, is that funnel process. I've heard it being done well at certain places, and where I am now, sometimes done well, but it's something that I if anyone is thinking about going towards scaled agile, really think about that funnel process, because it is massively important.
Do you think it's a failing of human nature that we just want everything, and we even as a group we go, we know we can only do 3, but we really want 30. And
I don't think so. I think it needs to be articulated. It needs to be codified first. You need to think about a good funnel process, and it needs to be codified in terms of it needs to be systemized. So you put a value against a revenue benefit or a paring down risk. You boil it down towards a metric, right? Like story points almost. Okay, it's a number, right? People can't. And once you've got a number on it, there's much less conjecture about what should go next because this one's higher number.
Yeah.
Now, the way to do that, there's different ways of doing it. But once you've got that, which you've codified something, then you articulate it and then you stick to it. And people will come on board. It's when people start bending and but what about this one? And then someone new will come in and they'll go, but don't worry about that. And it just needs to be quite strict. With some room for a gimme or for a what's the word for a I've forgotten my golfing term here for a anyway, you need to have some way to have something come in that is a Deus Ex Machina, right? Like it's going to come in and displace, but whatever. There is a mechanism. It doesn't always have to conform to the numbers, but that aside, it can be done, Alex.
Yeah, I believe
people just need to be strong about
but
it.
But it's probably, and Sandika, it's probably the democratizing of decision making that might be the challenge. Because
look,
you got to decide as a group what's the top things.
100%. And as I said previously, SAFE has this one of the values or principles where it says decentralized decision making. So what it means is you leave the more frequent decision making with the people with the knowledge, so the doers, and take the decision making on less frequent items, like what are like things that the execs would make, like that happens every year or every 6 months or whatever. So if you start doing that more and more, then the teams will feel empowered. So I mean it's part of democratization, and let the teams evolve given the priorities, and come up with a plan. One of the most successful programs of work that I worked in is for a bank back in Sydney. I worked there for one year. I had to leave because I was coming to Melbourne. When we started the quarterly planning with that program of work, was just, it's like a fish market chaos. No one knew what is going on, but we improved on that. And the fourth one that I was lucky to participate, things were aligned. People knew what to do. Program director knew what to do. Product owners knew what to do. Teams knew what to do. And the preparations were much smoother. People understood how it spans out. Yes, you are coming up with priorities, but nothing is set in stone. You have some wiggle room. So all of that was sort of streamlined. I think it's more practice. With more practice, you become better. The key aspect of that is you'll have your agile coaches, scrum masters aligning with the expectations and the level of maturity, things that you can actually do versus things you can't do given your limitations. Maybe you have shared capacity or shared team members. So knowing all of that and going into planning and having that sort of expectation set at the beginning is very important. So you are not setting yourself for failure in terms of expectation. And have those expectations very clearly articulated in your review sessions before the quarterly planning, or offline with your directors and program directors or your stakeholders, so they know.
They don't something there. So success or failure is really based on your expectations of it. I mean, if your expectation is only to get to a certain level of planning and leave the rest to the leaders or whatever that might be, and I think that's possibly the root cause of most of the ones I've been in. People have got very different expectations of what planning is, to the wild extent of one of the first PI plannings I set up at one place, where some of the leaders thought it was an opportunity to go in and decide what was going to be done. from scratch, and that was I just knew that wasn't going to work. But actually, when I say leaders, we're talking about a lot of leaders thought that in that, and I hadn't realised in setting it up that was such a big hurdle to overcome. But that was the first one. So if we'd have carried,
I'll give you a couple of examples that I've found very interesting. So you do planning, with all the teams, 5 or 6 teams for over 2 days, and then you present your plans and all of that. You would assume that there are no aha moments at that moment, right? When you go into the second half of the second day, and plan has gone through few iterations. There was this guy who had couple of aha moments. So why didn't you share it earlier? Why are you waiting for the last moment? So you should avoid that. Like shine. Looking for shining moments. You're not playing the game then, whether you are a developer or whether you're a senior stakeholder. So that was interesting. It boils down to personality as well. The other interesting experience that I had was one of the largest telcos in Australia. We did a 2-day planning session. Everybody flew to Melbourne. 2 days, plans are done, circulated. Third or fourth day, the leadership decided that plan is not good. It's not aligned to the priorities. And then everybody flew back to Sydney for one more.
That's good though.
Yes.
Wow. At least you redid it.
Look,
I mean, that's good. I think.
Yeah, look, as I said previously, if the expectation is that you have the decision makers there, you play back the plan and make those decisions at the end of the first day and hopefully align at the end of the second day. I feel that something was missing. Maybe it's politics at play, or maybe the right decision maker was not there. But to see that it is repeated and people having to re-prepare, the frustration and all of that is, uncalled for.
I think that's a positive story. I think the fact they could see the plan and that it wasn't what they wanted is the positive outcome that you get from planning. Because the worst thing is that they see it and go, oh, well, we'll just do this then.
Let's still do it.
But if they were looking for an outcome, if they wanted a certain outcome, or a shape of a plan, then that should have been communicated beforehand before you spend 2 days thinking about how to execute that high level.
Totally, but the idea that they changed their mind, I mean, literally what I was thinking was at least they saw it change, said, no, that's not good enough, we need more time to do more planning, as opposed to what they didn't go
look, 100%, I get it, but it feels like that suggests to me there's a disconnect between these guys and these guys.
It's like half glass, like full kind of how you look at it. Yes, you pivoted, you invest more energy or more time doing the wrong thing. Let's replan, or you'll have the frustration of we have to do planning again.
We maybe don't have time to explore into when it was done just under 6 months later, so just under 3 months later. Was that improvement embedded in, or did they do the same thing again? We'll let them have a go at planning, and then when they mess it up, we'll call them back to get it done again. Hey, I've really enjoyed chatting, guys, and I think the point around the prioritisation, in particular, based on value, has been something that I reckon you could make a fair bit of coin if you could answer how to actually get just more than one person to prioritise. It's something that I've experienced every single group I've ever been in. Every single one. And I said it might be human nature, it might be democratisation. Right back to when I was IT development manager and I used to get so many requests. I was thinking at the beginning of the year, give every manager 3 beans. And once they've spent their beans, that's their request on. Because you've got to give them some currency in the conversation.
The magic bean.
Yeah, I'm telling you.
Love it, mate.
So, and then I actually saw something on the US office, if you've seen that, when they're trying to decide who gets the pay rise. They're putting beans on. I'm thinking, that sounds like a good idea. So give people beans.
I like it.
You can't do it with cash. All right, guys, thanks a lot for the chat. I think it's covered quite a lot of stuff in PI planning. I think we should delve into this topic again and go in a little bit more about
there's a lot to unpack. And like what happens over the 2 days.
Totally.
What are the different ceremonies? What are the expectations? And why?
Because I don't think I did the training, by the way. I think I managed to skip that and did it later on when we first implemented Safe. Right. I think I did it later on as a second group. But even when you do the training, it's a lot about what you're doing rather than why you're doing it. And you kind of learn the why as you mature through it. But I think sometimes it's better to focus on the why and get that right. Hey, that's a whole topic on its own. Thanks for the chat. Thanks to anyone who's listened to this point. This is like our episode 8. We've done quite a few of these now, including estimations and how to become a Scrum Master, what product owner role is. They're all on YouTube, where you can subscribe as well, and on the website and on LinkedIn. All that's left is to thank you guys for joining. It's getting dark again, and we'll catch up again soon. Cheers, guys.
Thanks,
guys.
Thanks, Oli.